Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I hope it's okay. I'm going to set this slowly on there, and I hope that doesn't mess anything up. I reached out, obviously, to Dane before I came out here, and I said, if you were still here, there'd be somebody that I knew. But you left, and I don't know anybody here. And he said, well, my brother goes here, but he won't be there tonight. And I said, that's perfect that he chose tonight of all nights to not be here. But what Dane said is, he said, there won't be anyone there to give you an introduction. And that's a shame, because I do need somebody to come up here and make me sound cool before I give any sort of talk. And so I'll just tell you a little bit about myself before we get into things. I am 28 years old. I am married to Della Ray, and we have a daughter who is 9 months old at this moment, named Dottie. And I came into ministry in a very different way from many others, especially my brother-in-laws, and my friends. Most guys went to some sort of Bible college and have degrees, and I did not do that. For me, I attended preacher's training camp every year at North MacArthur during high school, and I seemed to have a joy and, as some would say, a knack for preaching. I'll let you decide that on your own, but because of that, I decided to preach wherever small congregations might have needed me, and that took me all over the state of Oklahoma, mostly names you've never heard of until there's a tornado that goes through it, but, small town Oklahoma. And that turned into me preaching in Binger, Oklahoma for 5 years until I accepted a preaching position in South Oklahoma City at the Metro Church of Christ, where I have now been for about a year and a half, coming up on 2 years. Beyond that, preaching is not all that I do. I am a musician. I write and record and perform music. I play a lot of shows in the Metro, so if you're ever in town, let me know and come by and see a show. But I preach because I love to preach. I enjoy ministry. It's not something I do on the side, but something I am doing on the side is my day job. I actually work a full-time job at a marketing and promotions business, and I am the manager of customer service. And it's as fun as a job as you are thinking it is right now. But here's the thing, I'm a good fit for that job because ever since high school, I have worked in various customer service related jobs. And something I learned very early on, right out of high school, is in that line of work, you never say the words, I don't know. Can't say, I don't know. And I had some jobs that I would get in trouble for if they heard me say, I don't know, to a customer. Now, I didn't see the harm in it, but I do understand it's better to be upfront and honest with the customer in my mind and tell them, I don't know the answer to your question. But what they would rather us say is something along the lines of, hey, that's a good question. Let me go find out. Now, to me, if I told that to you, you would probably say, he doesn't know. But instead of me telling you directly I didn't know, you see I've done some magic here and some wordplay, and I've told you, well, that's a great question. Let me go find out. And that way we'll both know for the future. So that being said, I don't know has sort of left my vocabulary, and it's just sort of secondhand for me to say, well, that's a great question, something I'll have to look into. And I say that all the time now. I think I don't know comes with a little bit of embarrassment to a degree. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to sound uneducated. And I don't want to cause concern for the person who thinks that I'm the one who can help them just to hear, I don't know. And this evening, we're going to look at Jesus answering a question, a series of questions, one of which, in a way, he nearly says, well, I don't know. And along with this lesson, I'm going to tell you some things that I don't know. And to give you some context, if you'll just bear with me tonight, this whole thing starts in Matthew 24. Just prior to Matthew chapter 24, Jesus laments over Jerusalem. He refers to them as the city that kills prophets. And he mentions how he would prefer to gather them up under his wing as a mother hen does with her children. And he's stating some great sorrow over the things that are yet to come upon Jerusalem. And when you get to Matthew 24, we see some specifics. Look at the buildings around you. Not one of them will have a stone left unturned. That gives us a better picture of what Jesus is lamenting for Jerusalem. And so the disciples want to know, tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? 3 questions there, and we're really just concerning ourselves with one tonight. But before we get to that, I want to look at Jesus' immediate response to those 3 questions posed by the disciples. He opens his response by saying, "Don't let anyone lead you astray." He answers all 3 of these questions clearly and concisely, if that's a word, I'm not sure. But he opens his response in an interesting way. Don't be led astray by someone else. There are going to be people doing that, leading other people astray. So don't be one of those being led away. And that will come into play later on in our lesson. So I just want you to remember that that's how Jesus begins his response to these 3 questions. One of the bigger focuses of tonight will be found in verse 36. In regard to the disciples' last question, what will be the signs of the coming of the end of the age? We're talking about the end of everything. When will the world as we know it, or the world in general, when will the world stop? Concerning that day and hour, no one knows. Not even the angels of heaven, not the Son, the Father only. And in a roundabout way, not directly, but the answer there, I don't know. And if I can be realistic with you this evening, when it comes to that question, when will the end be? And the answer being, no one knows. That's stressful to me. Might be a little stressful to you. I'd like to have some sort of inkling on when this is all going to stop. You know, when I was the baby of the family, or I was the baby of the family, that is until my dad got married and Lizzie became my stepsister and is quite a bit younger than me. But when I was younger, my brother Jack, who was always bigger and taller and stronger than me, would push me around and we would fight all the time. Your typical big brother, little brother stuff. And as you can probably guess, he won every time. And I had realized pretty quickly that I could never beat him physically. But I could break him down psychologically. Again, that's typical little brother stuff, I guess. And so we were on a road trip somewhere, and he had taken my toys or was throwing something at me, messing with me. And so for whatever reason, I turned and looked at my brother, and I just showed him the number 3. I just said, 3, Jack. 3. And then my brother looked at me, and he said, 3 what? 3. And he said, 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days? Is something going to happen to me? Are you going to do something to me? And when is that going to happen? And I would nod my head and say, yeah, something's going to happen. He'd say, well, when? And I say, I'm not telling you, I'm giving you that information, 3. And he told me, I remember he said, that makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know when you're going to get me back. And the truth is, of course, I had no idea how I was going to get him back, but that bought me some time and messed with him psychologically for me to give him not a timetable exactly, but let him know something's coming, and that's all you need to know. When it comes to the end of the age, obviously this situation that we're talking about is much more serious. But when will it be? What signs will give it away? How will we know? Only the Father knows. No one knows but the Father. Jesus goes on to say in verse 37, "For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken, one left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in which part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." We know it's coming, and that's about as much as we know. And bear with me here for this statement. Don't throw me out just yet. But the end of the world, Judgment Day, will be just another day. Here's what I mean. It will be everything the Bible describes it to be. It's the day of judgment, the righteous being split from the unrighteous, heaven or hell for eternity. That's a big deal. That's a big day, right? We sing, "What a day, a glorious day that will be." But also, it'll just be another day. Just like with Noah in the ark, there's people eating and drinking and getting married and giving over into marriage. Just another day. And then the floods came. Do you ever imagine, maybe this is just me, I hope not, you ever imagine what Judgment Day would look like? If you're still here, you haven't passed on yet, you're still here. If it happens tomorrow, you ever imagine? When I imagine it, when I think about it, I think, I'm going to be next to my wife, and we're going to be holding our child, and we're just going to be so happy to be going together. Maybe we'll be at her family's house or my family's house, or maybe we'll all be together, I don't know. Sometimes I've thought, maybe it will happen on a Sunday morning and I will have just finished my lesson, or maybe just before for some people's sake, right? But the Lord comes and there I am gathered with the saints. When I was about 6 years old, Mom checked me out of school, and it was still the morning. I had not been there for very long. I was really confused. I was not expecting that, and she picked up my siblings as well. All I know is that we hadn't been at school for maybe an hour, maybe a little bit longer, and I know that she was very stressed and was in a big hurry to get us home. She was definitely speeding to get us home. And I noticed that there were other parents checking their children out early in the morning as well. I didn't really understand at 6 years old what's going on. And when I remember when we got home, she rushed us into the house. She wouldn't answer any questions, and she turned on the TV, and all I saw was a big fire. And I was afraid that fire was close to us or was coming near to us, because Mom wouldn't tell us what was going on. And then something happened, and she ran outside to the neighbor's house and was talking to her, and I just remember being extremely stressed and not knowing what was happening. And that was September 11th, 2001. And it was pretty far away from Edmond, Oklahoma. But all my mom knew was that she wanted her kids all in one spot with her. She didn't know what else was going on or what this meant, but she wanted everyone with her. And so I picture the coming of Christ and how it will stop the whole world in its tracks. And I would want to gather my child and my wife together and just be together in the living room or something. But then I realize there's just as equal a chance that it happens on a Tuesday afternoon while I'm eating my lunch in my truck in a random parking lot. And it could just happen any day, at any time. And when I realize that, it becomes incredibly important what you are doing at any moment of your life. Right now, and when you leave here, when you wake up in the morning, whatever it is you do during the day. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly, I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, and begins to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he doesn't expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him with the hypocrites, in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I don't know when the end is going to be. Most people today seem to be more interested in trying to figure out when that day will be than preparing for that day to come. What we do know is that it's coming and that you and I need to prepare for it. Now, in case some of you are wondering if I forgot what I was supposed to be talking about tonight, I didn't. Because what Jesus gives next is the parable of the 10 virgins. And as he continues to have this discussion and answer these questions with the disciples at the end of the age, he gives this parable. And before we get to it, let me give you some background. There were 3 stages to a Jewish relationship. There was, at first, the engagement, maybe a formal agreement made by the fathers. There was the betrothal, the ceremony where mutual promises are made. And the third was marriage, approximately 1 year later on, when the bridegroom came at an unexpected time for his bride. And when the bridegroom would come, the bridemaids who were attending with the bride would go forth to meet the bridegroom with lamps lit to conduct him and his companions into the house and to her who was to be the bride. So we have 10 virgins waiting on the bridegroom to come, which they will then lead to the bride. And it's important to mention this now as well, that 10 lamps was fairly common, maybe a little less, but 10 lamps was fairly common to have at the wedding at that time. So all 10 virgins are expected to be there and to have their lamps lit and to be ready for the bridegroom to take him to the bride. They want to be there. It's an important job. I don't know who wouldn't want to be at this wedding. I had a similar phrase said to me in high school. I never went to a school dance. I can't dance. Maybe that's why. I never tried. But I especially didn't go to prom. It sounded like a good time. You kind of dress up, have a nice meal with friends, maybe ride in a limo. When I was in high school, they would have a party after prom, and they would hand out iPads and laptops and stuff, and that sounded cool. I really wanted to go, but I never felt that I had anyone to go with or much business there. And I couldn't count the number of people that came up to me, especially my senior year, and saying, you can't skip senior prom. You have any idea what you're going to be missing out on, the experience and the memories? I don't know anyone who wouldn't want to be there at their senior prom. We sang some songs tonight. We have scripture, we have hymns that we sing describing the home prepared for us. comparing heaven to magnificent gemstones and a mansion just over the hilltop, and everlasting comfort. There is no night there. Peace. The list could go on and on. You know, sometimes we focus a lot on that, and we don't focus on the main thing, in that we will be where God is, regardless of where that is. That's the most important part. That's the most exciting thing. I don't know who wouldn't want to be there. Who wouldn't want to enter into that? I don't know anybody who wouldn't want to do everything in their power to be there. But then the 10 virgins, they're split into two very distinct groups. 5 of them are the wise ones, and 5 of them are the foolish. And here's what makes the wise ones wise versus the foolish. The wise ones bring extra oil for their lamps in case the bridegroom takes longer than expected. The foolish virgins bring their lamps trimmed in oil at the ready. They just don't bring anything extra or amount for any extra time that the bridegroom may not be there. They aren't prepared to wait. And while the foolish all of them, while they are all asleep, there's a cry, the bridegroom is here. He's coming. The wise are ready with their extra oil, and the foolish are not, and they begin to prepare, or begin to ask the prepared, give us some of your oil, please. And I think back to the beginning of this whole discussion where Jesus warns them from the beginning, don't be led astray by others. And now we have this scenario in which the wise were prepared and ready and the foolish weren't. And they, hold on, just give us some of your oil. Let's try and work this out together in some way. And the wise virgins, they don't allow the begging fools to take away this opportunity. And they say, we don't have enough oil for all of us. And so it's either none of us or 5 of us. The 5 wise virgins keep their oil, and they prepare to meet the bridegroom and to take him into the bride. And the fools had to find someone selling oil, which we know is not going to go well. Of course, they come back and it's too late. The wise virgins enter into the marriage feast with the bridegroom, and the door is shut. This is maybe one of my downfalls, but I am very anxious almost all the time. I would like to know what is coming up so that I can prepare myself as much as I can for that and have anything that I might need ready to go. I want to be ready, and I want to be early. And I laugh when I say that now because I did not check with Dane as to when you all met, and so I was sitting in your parking lot at approximately 4:30. I didn't intend to be that early, but I did want to get here about 30 minutes before because I hadn't been here before, right, and that helps me with the nerves and the anxiety. We've had some rough storms lately. I have never liked storms. Now that I'm the adult in my house and I have to calm down my wife and child, I can't be anxious about storms anymore. Not allowed. But I never liked storms growing up. They knocked out our power. I was afraid of the dark. And even still, when storms are coming, despite me living in Edmond, where I would say basically nothing ever happens, I still want to know what my plan of action is, right? Some sort of shelter. If there is a tornado that does come through Edmond, I make sure that my phone is fully charged. I make sure that my laptop is fully charged. I have flashlights ready to go, maybe a few extra batteries. I put some shoes on, something just ready in case something happens, and I'll keep my eye on the news for a little while. My wife gets frustrated with me because every time there's a big storm, I'll say, we live in Edmond. Nothing ever happens here. But in the back of my mind, I know the one time that I truly believe that is the one time that something finally comes through. Knowing the lostness of the world, the grip that sin has, the pain and the sickness and the sadness, the disappointment, the separation from God, most importantly. I don't know why you wouldn't want to go to heaven, and I don't know why you wouldn't take your time to prepare for that. To make sure that you are ready, to make sure that your loved ones are ready. I don't know who wouldn't want into that marriage feast before the door is shut. Here's the last I don't know for you tonight. Afterward, the other virgins came also saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. And he answers, truly I say to you, I don't know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. You go back to the beginning of this parable, just as it is with any other parable, and it says, the kingdom of heaven will be like that. It'll be like the 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were ready, and 5 of them weren't. And it will be just like that. You read that, and it can, in our minds, it feels harsh. I don't want Jesus to tell me, I don't know you. And it hurts some people so much that men have created all sorts of denominations and unscriptural ideas. They've invented things that they want to hear. They've added to Scripture and twisted it to make it fit this idea that there is somehow a way to get those doors open once they've closed, and a few more people can trickle in that way. Obviously, in order to believe that, you would have to dismiss not just this parable that Jesus gives, you'd have to dismiss this entire conversation that he has with the disciples. Jesus says, if you aren't with me now, and you aren't with me when I get here, I don't know you. Jesus says, I don't know. But he enlightens his disciples on what he does know. He knows there is a great day coming. He knows that we need to be prepared. He knows that it will come like a thief in the night. It will be sudden. In the middle of us living our lives, he knows that people will be led astray, that there will be people falsely claiming to be him even, and claiming to know when the end of the age is and what they must do to make it. Or people will be led astray by believing that if it hasn't happened by now, it never will. He knows that when it's over, the door is shut. And when the door is shut, it stays shut. And he knows who he knows. The shepherd knows his sheep. The sheep know their shepherd. And to the rest, he will say, I don't know you. I definitely took a different approach to this lesson than I would any other, so I hope it was beneficial to you to look over those 2 chapters this evening. If nothing else, I hope it was a stark reminder. I knew a couple guys in high school who every day when they would run into each other in the hallway, they didn't make a big spectacle of it, but when they saw each other, they would say, it could be today, just in passing. Could be today. I'll tell you this. We don't need to know when it will be. Really don't need to concern ourselves with that, because if we know it's coming, and we can read Scripture and we know what we need to do, and then just be ready for it all the time, it could be today. And of course, I suppose an invitation this evening, if you are not ready, I'll say it again, it could be today, and you need to get ready. The lesson is yours to consider this evening as we stand and as we sing.